Hello, A. Rahman, and welcome to Film Companion South. About 15 years ago, you told me something that I just want to ask you now. At the beginning of this interview, you said you are you like interviews, but you also don't like them because they make you feel naked, and sometimes you feel like you expose too much of yourself that you don't want to expose to the world. 15 years later, do you still feel that way?
Actually, yes and no. Um, because I think sometimes certain things you have to keep it under wraps, like, and then do the things. You tell it early, expectations rise, and but also when you say things, you feel like you're done with it, and then you move on, and the next thing comes from above for you. So it's some of the stuff you don't have to say, some of the stuff you should say.
Okay. So we are going to talk about your writing today. You will say stuff, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Congratulations about 99 songs. You've written the story of the film. Now, one thing that you are a musician and you're a musician and you're a musician for the longest time. Now let's go back in time to when you were not a musician. I remember that. I mean, when I asked you like long back, what were the songs that you remember reading, listening to earlier? You said it was your father R.K. Shekhar songs, it was O.C. Bisa songs, it was Switched On Back.
You
What are the
remember more than me.
Sorry?
You remember all that more than me.
What is the first music thing that you remember reading?
Good question. I think I didn't do much of reading, but um, The Tale of Two Cities, The
Wow.
Count of Monte Cristo, and a lot of actually Indian mythology stuff, Panchatantra, and Sufi stories. Then I was crazy about Amachitra Kathas,
Okay.
you know. And then you go to the West, and then I did the Lord of the Rings musical with Vartana. So I had to read that stuff. It was very dark for me. But all these stories is all about good and evil and about universal wisdom and the formulas of life,
Okay.
karma, and you wonder why this happens. And then even our own, great texts like Ramayana, Mahabharata, we studied so much about what is right, what is wrong. So, but then post 2001, when I started traveling, is when I discovered life.
Okay.
Before then, I was like music, music, music. And even though it was very uncomfortable for me to appreciate um, how they appreciate art in the West, I slowly became accustomed to, for example, I went to Andrew Lloyd Webber's house, and there was a 15 million pound painting under the shoe rack, like above the shoe rack. So I said, why did he keep that painting, which is so expensive? So I guess that some people have the passion and love to expand the stuff, and that actually changed me. Going to London, going to Europe, and how they appreciate art, how they value somebody who's not even valued here.
Right.
All those things changed, and the whole world was becoming different.
Right.
Then I'll be sitting in airports and just watching each person, their faces. What is the story behind that face? And some people, they hug each other after seeing after a long time. Some people are almost crying. Some people are like confused. Some people are in debt. I'm going to take this. You see all this stuff, and then finally you realize it's the same life everybody has, same struggles, and how could it be more fascinating? Like Hitchcock says, right?
Yeah.
Movies are nothing but all the boring
The
parts of
dull
life
bits
cut
cut
out.
off. Yeah. Yeah.
So then you realize like there's no storytelling from the point of view of a person like me, who's in all the worlds, whether it's the Indian world or the Western world, music world, and the fame and also the blame.
Yeah.
And then these stories kept coming. Like, why don't Indian people tell these stories? Why can't we tell it like this?
Which stories?
No, the way I see
Okay.
the world,
Right.
because of my influences, my um, the kind of wisdom I learned, like came through different people, not just one culture but multicultural stuff. Then this story came, like, why don't we do a fairy tale kind of thing, where one guy has to compose 100 songs. For people, like, songs are just like, he just sits on the piano, he composes some song. But it's as, what do you call, taxing as going to war
Yeah.
or facing the storm. Because if you fail, it is like humiliation. It could be like as equal to death. I couldn't do that. I had all the stuff. I couldn't do something. I couldn't compose the song. I couldn't, face the challenge, which was. So I said, if you take that, internalize it, and you equate it with something as huge as going to war or going to, how will it be? How will the visual be for that? So these are the questions. And then I met Vishwesh, who's crazy guy again, and I saw all his ads and his MTV and
Yeah, and he's a singer as well. I mean,
correct,
like
exactly. So he got it immediately. He said, "I'm with you," and almost all the visuals he had already done in his ads. I said, "Who did this? Is me. Who did this?" So I was like, "Great, all this stuff. This is our movie in a way,
Right.
and we'll go further than this with the story."
So that's interesting. So let me pick on the word failure that you just said.
Yeah.
Failure is such a subjective thing, right? Because there are many songs of yours, for instance, that failed, I don't know, 15 years ago, but today are like celebrated as classics or whatever. What is failure? Is it something that you feel temporarily, or it did not do well in the market at that point, or how do you define failure?
It's. I think I got used from the first movie soundtrack. I got used to people saying it's not good, or people saying as you're finished, and people saying, and it's actually in a way good that you see both the parts. But if I don't complete something, if I overlook some flaw in the stuff, that is my failure.
Okay.
With having all the stuff, having a great team, if I fail to, mix something bad, if I mix something badly or there's a flaw which I say, it's fine. That one point is my failure.
Okay.
Not people saying, millions of people saying it's bad or good, but within me, because that confidence is what has saved me.
Right.
Like when I did my first soundtrack, it never existed before in me, because I'm come from different influences.
Yep.
My intention was to make that soundtrack, and it came true. It was by the guidance of my big brother Mani Ratnam and Vairamuthu sir and all this stuff, and all the great singers. Yeah.
So when you have that thing that you once said that I want to make sure that everything that leaves my studio
Yeah.
is the best possible version of what it can be.
Yep.
This is again in some other interview, but I remember you saying this, and it's like you have instilled this in all the people who work with you, under you, that whatever leaves the studio is going to be the best possible version of what it can be. Was that the standard for your script as well, for the story as well?
Yeah, I think coming to story, there are many, many tools in filmmaking, which is fantastic. So what you shoot is not exactly what you see on screen. So it can be interpreted with music, with voiceovers, and sometimes go completely black and just use sound. So all these tools were explored in this. And one editor sees the movie in a way, another editor can change the whole thing. So because I worked in Hollywood and they were trying all these tricks, I learned lot of tricks there. How do you pull the movie into the most engaging movie ever? Because as a musician, you know that people want to listen to music, they can listen to in the car. So you don't have to show a person playing guitar and that won't engage unless there is something under, there's a bomb under the seat, stuff like that. Then also character, how do you like a character? And there's a famous book called Save the Cat. And in that, it's so simple. It's like if you don't like the main person, they won't watch the movie. Why should they watch the movie? Because they have to cling on to this character. And that's what I think the editing, post-shooting, the editing actually was, spearheaded in that way.
Again, let's go to a little flashback. What is the first thing that you ever wrote? Was it like an English composition? Did you have a diary or something that you used to write into, or was it a love letter or something? What is the first thing A.R. Rahman ever wrote?
I think it was the jingle. I think some color lab. The gentleman, Isaac Thomas, actually passed away a couple of months back. He was my first client. And he was also a composer now. He became a composer later. I think that was done in the famous Vijaya Garden
Okay.
Deluxe Theatre when I was working for Rajkoti. That day we didn't have recording, so I used the same theatre. And after that, actually before that, I had bought a 4-track, like a cassette 4-track where you put a cassette, you get 4 tracks. You don't have to reverse it. And I would overdub things, I would reverse voices, and mostly do all the spatial kind of stuff. Like, what will the music sound in the moon? How will it, that kind of atmospheres. I don't know whether I have those tapes, but so that was it. Yeah,
That was the first thing.
that was the first thing.
What-
You have the scare. Like, I was assisting Vijay Manuel in jingles because he was working with Mr. Ilayaraja, and then I was working outside. So he would call me because of a friendship during the thing. He said, whenever he used to do jingles, he used to call me as a keyboard player. So I was playing there. And then slowly I got a jingle. And when I said to people that I'm composing, they would laugh at me. Oh, yeah, nice, compose. There was like this cheeky and condescending, what are you going to compose? That kind of thing. Still remember those few people who had that thing. And then, of course, then moved on. Hey, can you compose this jingle for me? It became like that. So very similar. I feel the same kind of thing when this started. There was
99
comments,
songs.
and then I think when people saw the trailer and all, they understood that the serious business. And
What is the first line of the jingle that you composed?
I think the product name is Bhavan's Color Lab or something. Yeah,
But what did you write around it?
it's just a tune, and then it comes. There was.
That was the first thing you wrote.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Oh, you
okay.
mean like words?
Like words, yeah. Like,
oh, words.
yeah.
No, I didn't write the words. It's
Yeah, no, so I'm saying, what is the first time A.R. Rahman put pen to paper or hand to keyboard and wrote something? I'm
okay, like
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. You want to see my scribbles?
I want to. No, but
I will try to.
Not necessarily 99 songs, but I'm like, see, the thing is, in the West, for instance, there is a very established tradition of singer-songwriters.
Yeah.
Like here, that's not there that much because the independent music has just pretty much, it's been there in a few parts, but here it's like somebody composes, somebody sings. So have you written?
Recently, I wrote a song for my son, which is Never Say Goodbye.
Okay.
So if you look at the whole lyrics, I wrote the whole lyrics.
Okay.
I kept quiet because I didn't put the lyric name.
Okay.
People start judging me. Then the song became a little famous. I said, slowly put my
Okay.
thing in it.
But what is the earliest thing that you wrote? You don't remember that?
I have a lot of scribbles. And even after Vande Mataram, I had this, Shekhar Kapoor presented me with this thing, and then it called the Sion.
Ah.
So I put loads of ideas, like this will be my next album, this will be. One day I went back and everything vanished from that.
Like just disappeared.
Completely disappeared.
Okay.
So then I realized, okay, it's meant to be. Maybe,
Right.
you have to keep writing and rewriting and rewriting. That's life.
So one of the things about your music is that you layer it, right? Like as opposed to earlier when people used to pretty much do the whole thing and then just execute it. You're one of that's. I mean, it's been like you do a bit of jamming, you do a bit of layering, you work on your own, you do all these things, and finally you kind of build it like an architect. Was the writing process somewhat similar?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, strangely, yes. There is a very simple one-liner of the movie which I told you.
Yeah.
One guy has to write 100 songs. But then how do you engage people? How do you make them sit? And because people are so restless now, they have ADD like me. I watch movies with fast forward sometimes. And I feel like, okay, I know this
No,
scene, what is going
do
to
not
happen.
say this.
No, because that helped me in the movie. Because,
Okay.
when Vishwesh actually shot a lot of things with a lot of space, and we had a 3.5 hour cut, I said, no, this is not going to work. 3.5 hours and people are going to sit. And because he's so passionate. And so we just said, like, can we make it short? No, we can't make it short. Then the editor was also great, I think. Then I said, okay, what if somebody else comes and sees the cut? And then we called Manisha from, who did Mom. And she came in and we said, I told her, she's like, we'll just use probably 5-10 minutes of what she's doing. And then he came and said, oh my God, I'm blown away. How did she do this? It's 2 hours, 5 minutes now. And then she came and tweaked more after that, more perfecting this whole cut. And then I realized a story can be told in, many ways. And music, because we have the soundtrack, of course, we can't use all this 1 hour of material, but that people, when they listen to it, they know what the character is,
Yeah.
what the lyrics are, and they go to the depth of it. But when they see it, okay, that lullaby she might have sung behind doors, or that
Yeah.
love song is only half kept because the story has to move. It has to go to the plot, and from there. So I was testing a lot, and I called a lot of my friends from the first cut. We were testing, and I was watching them, what people are saying.
So, one of the toughest thing for any story conceiver is that you do it all inside your head, right? And you see the characters a certain way, you see the progression a certain way, and then in a film, unlike in a novel, you hand it over to other people, and each one of them takes it in one different direction, and you see your precious story, which is like inside your head
No,
being.
there's
How
some.
did you take? I mean, some people find it very painful, so they stay away from the sets. How did you?
No, I think that one thing I learned to trust. And some of the stuff I knew that if it goes wrong, it's a lot of money. So I'd go and sit there and just watch the fun without, intruding and say, hey, can you have a long shot? Nothing, just keep quiet. And so that helped. In my head, I had the story, the pillars of the story where it has to go from here to A to B. And so I think that has stayed till the end. That stayed. In fact, Vishwesh sent me 3 months back, said, this is what we wrote in 2015, and we stuck to that.
Right.
So that's a good thing, what you started in, the format and the heartbeat of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
So I heard that you started writing this around 2011.
Yeah.
So that means that's a little after Vinay Thandivarvaya, Ravanan, Jhuta You Say. That combination of albums came out around that
Yeah,
time.
because I was traveling a lot. And
So you had time.
these flights were like 16 hours. And I was sitting in the cabin, and then I have my laptop, and you go above, you're above everything, going over the North Pole or South Pole, and then you see this different view of the world, much more from a top angle, objective view. And then you get all this great ideas because, again, you're going between another culture to another culture.
Right.
And I would say, like, in some cases, we are very, very evolved. Some cases, the West is very evolved. So what if we just culminate both? And so that's how stories are made for the universe. And
Right.
I felt like, also I felt like we are making movies only for ourselves mostly, or we making, this is what they would want to see. So I said, like, why don't we find break the ice and find a middle line so that these ideas could be made and see what happens. And again, for the casting, I wanted, it was tricky because initially we wanted somebody more younger. And then I said, okay, then this is, by the time we shoot the movie, we become older. So anyway, I have somebody who's could be the next big superstar.
Right.
And so we give the industry something. And so this guy Ihan went to, my friend Bernie, and he was coached for 4 weeks and he mixed with all these people. So he has a lot of stories. Then he went to Came Conservatory, learned for 1 year. We took the hard route, actually. Took too much on us.
Right.
Many things.
So it was those flights really that said it's not something like say, I've been working on music for so long. Let me try a different facet of my brain. It's not that. It's
Also, I think post Oscars, you have this sense of freedom. Like, I mean, for most of the people in the world, I mean, that award is the pinnacle of everything. So usually they say after the Oscars, it's all gone. Everything, But for me, like, for that, I needed to take something more on myself. And I felt like I was ready for it. And even I went through life so much. So I thought, when you experience something rather than reading something, it's much more validating, I would say.
Right. So just cutting back a little to your experiencing so much, you have been at the top of the Tamil music scene. I'm counting Roja onwards for almost 30 years now. Does that sometimes make you like feel like a man who's been on the moon and says, okay, I've already stepped foot on the moon, now what next? Or do you find ways to kind of not think about it and say, okay, forget 30 years, 20 years, whatever it is. I'm just making music. I'm just writing something. Just focus on the present.
There's a joy of making a song as something, it's like cooking. You're cooking and then you're serving and you see the smiles. Or
Do you
people
cook
going,
well? Do you cook well?
No, I meant like,
Okay. And I'm just curious.
Hypothetically.
Okay.
No, I don't cook. I make omelets. Survival. Sometimes when you go abroad, there's nobody, and then you have to make your own omelet. And
Okay.
I like that little loneliness also sometimes. Yeah.
So that's the thing. So it's like you just like to make music.
I like music, and then I think from childhood when I had bought this Click 4 camera, remember when I was 13. So photography was there, hidden in my agenda,
Right.
but I never had the time.
Right.
So when I did the Jaiho tour in 2010, I think I had bought the 5D camera. Before that, couple of years back, I think Danny Boyle showed me, this is the 5D camera. Yeah, this is how we shot the Taj Mahal. Went inside. And so he showed how effective it is, and it's changed the way people are going to film things. So I bought it out of just interest. I didn't know how to use it. But over years, like couple of years, how to do the aperture and
Right.
the frame rate and blah, blah, blah.
So
White balance.
apart from the musical side, the movie side also kind of comes into your system.
Yeah, then we have, and then Les Musk happened. Les Musk was, again, I was in a cruise with Paul Allen. We went to Vietnam and Malaysia and Brunei.
I just love how all these names keep dropping from
Yeah,
your...
no,
Yeah,
sorry.
I know, but it's nice. It's just kind
Yeah,
of...
so there was it's strange. In the yard, the writer of Game of Thrones was there. There's Quentin Tarantino. There was Quincy Jones.
Loving it
Stevie
even more.
Wonder.
So-
Yeah, it was beautiful to hang out. The person who found Island Records, who
Right.
found Bono and U2 and Bob Marley. So it was great company.
Right.
So I think with great minds, there only great things happen, hopefully. So I went down and this Les Musk thing happened. Like, why don't we I had discussed this idea with my wife, like, why don't we do a small movie, experiment movie about, with scent is also a thing.
Yeah.
And then I called Danny's daughter, Grace Boyle, and she said she has a company which can do scent also.
Right.
And so this whole thing came about on the yacht, calling and in probably in 5-6 months we were shooting in Italy. It conceived and it was supposed to be a 20-minute film.
Fantastic.
But then it became a 1-hour movie because unlike 2D movies where you see a frame and you see in it, you need to look at 360. It's so real that it felt bad cutting it so fast. So everything extended by 1/3 or 2/3.
That should be a movie, Rahman. Being on a yacht with the founder of Island Records and with, I don't know, all these other people and, creating this, that should be a movie. So,
Absolutely. It's like you only hear about what rock stars go through. This time it's just like you see these private jets and chopper.
yeah, well,
and
you're a rock
submarine.
star now. So it's
Submarine.
like, yeah, so
It's hard to accept it because suddenly I get this doubt. Where am I sitting? I'm sitting with Mick Jagger. I'm sitting with, I'm sitting in the place where We Are the World was recorded, Henson Studios.
right. And we're sitting in Chennai where you grew up and, like
This whole multicultural, dual life, I think duality is exciting.
Right. What is the difference between when, let's say, Shankar comes to you for a movie, right? He's going to broadly tell you the story, and then he's going to tell you the specific things for the song. But here, it's your story. So you know very well what the song is supposed to do, what this emotions. I mean, you know it intimately, specifically. Is the process different or is it the same?
It is slightly different because there are many aspects which can change. How the actors are, how the director is interpreting things, and there's a lot of trust actually.
And even while composing.
While composing, I think some of the stuff I'll send to Vishwesh and ask his feedback. What do you think? And he will give his feedback.
Okay.
And because he said something very interesting yesterday in the show. He said, like, I've listened to AR's music, so through my eyes, what an AR Rahman movie should be was my thing. Because I've seen all these layers he's put. So the movie also has a very similar thing. So it was very kind of him to say that. And he is actually truly a master of his art, the way he's composed his shots and everything. And this movie is not going to be like other movies.
It's not a musical?
It is a musical, but it's a human story.
Okay.
Music is a part of it.
Right. So the thing is that, no, when you were composing, are you saying that your process itself didn't acquire extra depth because it was your own story? Did it
Actually, this was the most difficult one because there are checks for everything. when Mani Ratnam comes and he asks the tune, he'll say, I want this to be catchy, I want this to be, so he has specific needs. Now those needs expand. If I'm the writer,
Right.
I said it's my movie, I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
That's one thing, but will it fly with people? Or is it too much? Is it too
who's
deep?
the gatekeeper?
Correct, the gatekeeper. So some of the songs took like a couple of years to even. So this check is like, this is right for the movie. Will people accept it? That was the question constantly coming.
Right.
But then I felt like that I've been asking all my life, and this is the time to just let it go and let it go. And see what happens. For example, the Sai song.
Yeah.
When I first composed, like, Vishwesh, why are you composing a Sai song for this movie? I mean, when you see the movie, you understand what it is. And I said, yeah, why can't it be like multiple things together?
Right.
And then, it is a very, very slow song. It's not a song like the Jonpuri song, which I did on Ram, or what I did in Sangamam. It's very more understated, I would say. But so I had constant doubts that this is the right tune for this, or maybe it's not. And then I heard like, let it be like this, because there's no pressure, and see what happens. And then that became the core for the telling too much.
Yeah.
Like,
that's okay.
it's the movie.
We're here to listen to you.
No, it's the movie. I don't want to give it away.
Right. No, but when you again, you've said up that sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, like a catchphrase for a song or something like that, and then you jot it down because you don't want to forget it. And a lot of the times you've attributed to something more powerful than you. Would you say a similar thing happened with the story as well, or was it a completely conscious thing that you were doing?
So I had 3 stories. So this is one. There's another one about time travel. And the other one, I forgot what it was. But so I asked Munni, and I told these 3 lines in Munni Kabir, because I was mostly in London at the time. She said, this is the one. It looks fresh. And I said, okay. And so I said, because I love her guts, because she's been working in the West and she knows the East.
Right. So that's pretty much that decided. So,
yeah, I decided that. And then...
so the fate of this movie rests on Nasreen Munni Kabir's.
She's to be blamed. No, I think this is just the first stage, the many, many stages. And also there are expectations.
Right.
How will the movie be? That is the scary part.
Right.
You come with, it's going to be like this movie and that movie.
Right.
I think it has its own voice.
Right.
It has its own voice because I think both of us are musicians. At the same time, we didn't want something which is been done so beautifully by other people. We didn't want to take that route. We said, what are our favorite, cinematic moments? What if we can have those kind of things in our story?
Yeah.
What the story demands. So that experience is what we try to give. But everything has been like mercilessly cut. So the story moves pretty fast.
Okay.
And I'm very proud of it.
Okay. So there is another part of writing that you've unconsciously done over the years, which is what they call the tattagaram, or the syllabic. Whenever something doesn't match your music, when you make a tune and a lyricist kind of fits something, you've made those. Why not? Said do this word or do that word or something like that.
That's been from the beginning, yeah.
From the beginning,
yeah.
So in a way, you've been a writer.
Yeah, I think yes, because some of the concepts of the songs also was given by me.
Right. Can you give an example?
Rainatu.
Okay.
Like be yourself. Like I love you with the thorns and the roses together, or even Luka Chupi.
Yeah.
And because there's a freedom and trust which a director gives you, like beyond composition, even conceptualizing. So we, as a team, we don't put names to it. It comes from and sometimes they give a great idea. Why don't we do a song like this? So the idea comes from the director or from the lyric writer. So as a team, we don't, I want this, and it's not like that. And even with Maniji, like he would say, throw concepts like, why don't we do a song like this, only voices? Rasati came to that. And he just do a cappella, where there's no rhythm at all. Everything is a voice. He said, yeah, let's do it. Any new idea I think you could throw at him, he'll like accept it and let's make it work. So this way, I think it's a teamwork thing.
Right. So, but now we're still. So you're saying this is still a teamwork thing, except that it's wholly yours, and for the first time, you're sending it out to a team.
Correct. No, the thing is, the what I realized is when I speak, I go back to it, and then I felt like this didn't come from me. It came from the experience. It came from the wisdom which,
When you
I'm being-
speak, meaning?
in the interviews and everything.
right,
That's how I think. I said, this is a story. What I spoke is a story, and all I need to do is now flesh it out. I get the right person, the right team, and then we do a story. Because we see a lot of things which have been done, great things, and a lot of stupid things also been done. And
Right.
like just because, okay, there's this famous word called content. I said, this is not content. This is my life. This is my soul. This is art.
Right.
This is not just people coming together, making something just so that it exists. This is every frame, every sound goes through our system. It gets perfect. It gets cleansed as much as we can.
Yeah.
And there are 3 languages. So there's so much to go. It's sometimes it's exhausting, but
Right.
exciting always.
So finally, when you put out a song, there is always this question of, like, we talked a bit about failure earlier. It's like there's also a question of will the song work with the audience or will it not work with the audience? Or, I mean, of course, it may work many years later, all that. But at present, is there that tension in you right now, saying that I'm putting something out into the world which is totally new for me?
The tension was there for 4 years. I'm in the Zen mode now.
You're very zen.
This is what you have.
Okay.
So come with very low expectations and high hopes.
Right.
So at different stages of my life, like in the past 4 years, I put the movie and said, will people walk out here? Will people walk out there? And they know the story. Like when we did this great Busan, that was a great test. So I was expecting everybody to, then the end, they all came with a smile. I don't want to say much. So it was very pleasant.
Right.
So it was very
Right,
encouraging.
right.
And this movie is actually for India.
Yeah.
And for India with our voice in it. Yeah.
When you gave the foreword for the Maniratnam book, you used this wonderful Italian word that one of your friends had.
Spezzatura.
You remember the word?
Yeah.
Does that mean the feeling of making complex things appear simple, sprezzatura? Is that something that you have with you right now, Rahman?
For everything, that's the best thing, because if I speak so much and then they see the movie, it's like, why did he speak so much? I get this movie straight away, And so that's a scary part. So I don't want to say too much. I think those who want to discover things can discover.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that I've planted this, I planted that. And I keep quiet.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for this interview, and please ensure that the next time we speak, it's on a yacht with at least 5 internationally renowned people, because I'm not going to be able to get that story out of my head. That's my takeaway from
I'm
this.
just very grateful to Paul, and he's such a sweetheart. And of course, we did another trip before that, when we had it done part of the music of Super Heavy on the yacht. That's when we met. So that interesting story is one more interesting story. So we were passing through Greece, and Paul comes in. AR, I was playing something in the recording. We're going to Greece. Do you want to meet someone? I was like, the only person I know in Greece is Vangelis, because I started with his music, and he's such a great, inspiring person for every synthesizer player. So he just, without any expression, he went, and then 1 hour later he comes in. We're having dinner with him. What? So we go to Vangelis.
You're having dinner with it composed of Chariots of Fire.
Yeah, exactly. We go in, and he comes in the lift, and it's like surreal. And he just plays for us for 3 hours, and we were all super jet lagged. We couldn't sleep. So literally I had to say, thank you, sir. Great honor.
But Rahman, you realize now that if you came down on a lift, there'd be several people feeling the same thing about you.
Well, I don't keep that in mind.
Okay.
With my family, I'm a simple person.
Thank you again so much about this, and all the best for Night Night Songs.
Thank you.